What's good, everybody? The ABCs of communication, connection, and speaking. Today's letter O. I gotta keep looking at it. O'Reilly. No, I don't even know where that came from. Okay, the letter is, the letter is O. The word is organized. Organized. This one is going to be a good one. I'm going to lighten it up just a little bit. I am going to provide a tactic, something to think about. Hi, Matt. I'm talking about organized, right? Or organizing your thoughts primarily, right? Like, how do you stay organized in your mind? How do you get organized? Not just in the space of I had time to plan, but really, how do you organize your thoughts in the spur of the moment? How is the question. So that's what we're going to cover today in the ABCs of communication, connection, and speaking. And this is really about just connecting with yourself, you know. I talk about communication, talk about speaking, but this one is about connection with yourself. Sometimes I talk about connection with others. But this is really about being able to first connect with yourself. And then it makes it so much easier and fluid to connect your message to others. Okay. So that's how we're gonna take a look at this. What's up, Brian? Hello, welcome. ABCs of communication, connection, and speaking. Okay, let me get into it. So, and I say that I'm going to keep this one light. I'm going to keep it fun. Something came to my mind, and it is a saying that is very emphatic. It is matter of fact. It is on point, quite finite. There is a saying that I believe Nene Leakes of the Real Housewives of Atlanta originated and popularized. And maybe she didn't originate it, but she certainly popularized it. And that phrase is, I said what I said, right? I said what I said. Now, you're probably wondering, Shahara, what does that have to do with being organized? And it's really a call to action in the spur of the moment. You're asked to speak, you're introducing a conversation, you're talking in a meeting. This is what will help you kind of reel in your thoughts and in a way kind of get organized. I said what I said. And if you are talking a whole lot and kind of rambling or, just being extremely verbose, if you cannot recall what you said, then nobody else is going to remember what you said. I said what I said. So what did you say? What did you say? Oh, you can't remember? Oh, I had too many points. So I offer that because the easy way to organize your thoughts, especially in the spur of the moment, and you're making a point, is just stick to one point. So that if you have to say it again, which I said what I said means that I'm not going to say it again. But if I had to say it again, I could recall what it is that I said and I could say it again because I said what I said. And it should just be one thing that you said. Like I said, I just came up with this today and it made sense in my head, but I don't know if it's going to make sense in yours. But it's more so of a train of thought and being able to recall. So when you're organizing your thoughts, if you feel as if it is too much for you to go back and repeat what it is that you said, then that's your first step. Your first step is to make it shorter. Cut that off. Don't mention that. If you start moving in a certain direction, stay in that direction. If you're talking about what happened in your day, do not go and talk about then what happened in another day. If you're talking about what happened in your day, don't let a person in your day become a side story that you then talk about. Because if you want to say, I said what I said, you yourself has to remember what it is that you said. It's this idea of backtracking. And so if you're backtracking just a little bit too much, being able to recall what you said is going to be so much more difficult. And that also means it's going to be difficult for people to keep up with you. What's up, everybody? Welcome, the ABCs of Communication, Connection, and Speaking. And we're on letter O, and it is organizing your thoughts. And what I'm really kind of challenging you, or the seed that I'm planting, is really this idea there's no real need to get organized if you keep it extremely simple. I've got one point. I'm going to offer this one perspective. You said this one thing, and I have one other thing to add to it. And think about that one thing and then go deep on it, but don't add in other concepts. I'm going to make a point and make that point. And when you start to feel yourself moving outside of that point, then reel it back in. I said what I said, but if you can't remember what you said, then you know that you're probably adding too much detail. You know that you're moving down a train of thought that isn't relevant to the point that you're trying to make. You know that you're adding in contextual information that doesn't support the one point that you're making. And so at the end of it all, if you were to say, I said what I said, could you actually say it again? Could you remember it? Could other people remember the one thing that you said, what you said? And the other part that is helpful in maintaining maybe that one point so that you don't have to put so much stuff out there that you have to reorganize it, put it back together, figure out what my point was, and try to align it, is to not bring so much to the table, so much to the conversation, so much to the point or points that you're making. They have this rule called, there's a couple of rules, the rule of threes. Tell them what you're going to say it, and then tell them what you said. And that is so that you're driving home one point. And sometimes people break that into 2 to 3 points. If you want to stay organized, typically the rule of thumb is keep your talking points to 2 to 3, right? Hello, everyone. But to make it even easier, stick to that one point. And here's another opportunity to remain organized in what you're sharing at any given moment, is that first thing that comes to your mind, that should be the thing that you share. Now, I know that it may not be the most appropriate. I know that it might be an emotional response, but we are quick to filter that and say, I know that that's not something that I should be talking about right now. Hey, Roslyn. But that first thing that typically comes to your mind is typically the thing that you can stay focused on. Right? It's the thing that you're probably most passionate about. It's the thing that's most immediate. It's the thing that might resonate the most with you. Mylene. So stick with that thing. Of course, you probably filtered out 2 or other 3 things that came to mind first, and then you decided that's not appropriate for now. But stick with it. Stick with it. I can't tell you how many times that I've done like an interview or a podcast or just whatever the case, even a Q&A amongst a conversation at a networking event. And when I most times don't go with that first thing that I thought to say, that I thought to respond, the first thing that I think would be valuable, then I go into my mind and I start searching. And I start searching and I start trying to bring up this and bring up that and bring up this. And the next thing you know it, I'm like, you know what I'm really trying to say is, and then I always end up back at that first initial thought. So in the space of remaining organized, organizing your thoughts, I talked about journaling. That's a whole nother subject. I might return back to that just so that you can preemptively get organized. But in the space of being in spur of the moment, impromptu, everyday conversations and encounters, wanting to organize your thoughts on the spot. Hey, Kevin, I would say stick to one point, one idea, one thought, one emotion, and really try to stay within that lane. If you start to bring in other things like an off ramp and you're bringing something on, or you got a detour, then you're bringing that on, that's going to make it really difficult to stay organized within your thoughts. It's going to be very difficult to organize those thoughts, to hone in just on that one point. So when I came up with the I said what I said, if you can say that, that means that you were on your point. You can recall it, say it again, which you probably aren't going to if you said I said what I said, but be able to recall it, perhaps reiterate it, perhaps go back to it. can you actually remember all of the things that you're saying? And so in the space of saying, I want to be organized, how do I direct my thoughts? How do I manage my thoughts? How do I organize my thoughts? In the moment, keep it to one point so that after you make that one point, you can confidently say, I said what I said, right? So that's the gist of it. I'm just hanging out here. When I thought about the letter O, organized was the first thing. Organizing your thoughts were some of the first things that came to my mind. But I really also look at that as there's no need to get organized if you just have that one thought, that one train of thought, that one idea, that one response, and really follow that lane. And when you start getting used to just making your point, saying it, and put a period on it, it makes it a lot less, it makes it easier not to go and try to extract other ideas. Oh, then this and that turned into that. And then people get lost in the point. And then you're like, I don't even remember what my point was. So in order to not have to constantly feel like I have to organize my thoughts, if it's one thought, it's nothing to organize. It is just the thought. It is just the idea. It is just the insight. It's just the one thing that you are contributing. Hello, Lindsay. Welcome. And when you stick to that one point, when you stick to that one contribution, that one phrase, that one statement, you can say, I said what I said. And say it with confidence. Like, I know I said what I said. It was one thing. I remember it. I recall it. It was one point. I was on track. I delivered it, and that's it, right? So that's just the energy I was feeling with this one today. I said what I said. And then everyone is very clear as to what it is that you just said. And I think that that's where a lot of that response comes from. I said one thing. I made one point. You heard me. I was very clear about it. I'm doing a lot of this today. I'm feeling my movement, but it's a rhythm with I said what I said. But for those of you also who want to, thanks Mylene for the badge. I appreciate that. Thank you. But just to take it also a level deeper, right? I wanted to present something that just came to my mind because I was like, there is something to do with I said what I said and organizing your thoughts, making it clear, making it concise, being very direct, not getting off track, not rambling, right? But in the space of really exercising this brain, because what I say all the time, and I talked about this on letter J when we talked about journaling. If you want to be better at organizing your thoughts, you have to make 2 points. You have to make 3 points. You are bringing in a lot more detail, and you want to make sure that you're organizing your thoughts so that you're sharing it out fluidly. The thing that I say, and I'll take it back to letter J with journaling is such a powerful tool to exercise your mind. Your mind is a muscle. And not only is your mind a muscle, but inside your mind, it is like a Amazon warehouse. I've never been in an Amazon warehouse, but I would presume you have aisles and aisles and aisles and aisles full of things. And if you don't walk those aisles often, if you don't have a directory, if you haven't toured it time and time again, you're not going to know exactly which way you need to go if you need to, grab something specifically. And I say that your mind is very much like that. It is an Amazon warehouse with aisles and aisles and aisles of information. I also liken our minds to information highways. And you got a highway and an interstate and this and this, that, and that, all crisscrossing different ways. And all of those ideas, thoughts, sentiments, and feelings are all coming from different parts of your information mind highway. But they all have to come out of this one-way street, just coming out the one-way street of your mouth. So in your mind, you become a traffic conductor. And how is it that you know that certain information is coming from this part and that part and this part and that part? It is to get familiar with the highways and byways of your mind. And to get familiar with all of the off ramps and on ramps and all of those things. And to get familiar with the aisles of your warehouse like Amazon, it is called journaling. Getting familiar with your thoughts and your ideas. We are all influenced and our perspectives are challenged, our perspectives are widened. But at the core, we have kind of made up our minds about certain things and they slightly adjust, but it doesn't change completely the highway or the aisle that you have to go to, retract or to recall or to grab that thought or idea. It's probably still down that same aisle. The thoughts that you have about your childhood, the thought that you have about your womanhood, the thoughts that you have about politics and religions, it's still down that same aisle. It might evolve a little bit, but you're still going to go down the same aisle. But if you aren't spending time within your own mind, being thoughtful, pondering, being reflective, you are not going to be familiar with how those highways and byways move. So that every time you go into your mind, it's like the first time you've been there, even though you're there all the time. But it's the thoughtful and intentional time that you spend in reflection and also outpouring. When you journal, not just talk, but when you journal, you're writing out. I'm sure there's some scientific proof or something that says that when you write out your thoughts and your ideas, your level of your own self-comprehension becomes so much stronger. So journal. That's what I'm also going to say about organizing your thoughts and your ideas. Become familiar with the content in your mind. That is the best way. And you have to exercise that. It is an exercise. It doesn't just happen. I can't just give you a tactic or a strategy that helps you quickly, organize your mind. Like, you have to get familiar with the thoughts, with the sentiments and the feelings that are back up in there, right? So I gave you a real easy, funny one. I said what I said. There's no need to organize if you just got 1 point. Please just keep it to 1 point. Whatever that 1 point is, sometimes it's the first thing that comes to your mind. Commit to it. Go down through it. And I would also add this, and I mentioned this, but even if you do feel like you're kind of all over the place, just stop and say, what am I really trying to say here? I say, WTF, what the F am I really trying to say here? And that helps you kind of regroup. So if you are in the moment and you do find yourself scattered or rambling, or you've just lost your point altogether, just say to yourself, what am I really trying to say here? What the F am I trying to say? And for those of you who are looking for a little bit more long-term practice, then definitely get into journaling. Hi, Saya. Definitely get into journaling. And that's going to help you get familiar with your mind. I think that that's the best way to organize your thoughts. And before you know it, I was not say before you know it, but then you'll start to show up in conversations, and these ideas, these points, these stories, these experiences, these lessons, they will then come to you. And before I close out, I'm gonna give an interesting exercise that I did with myself just yesterday. I was a guest on a podcast, and I think we recorded last year in the fall. We are currently in, I don't even know what month it is, August. And so, months have gone by. I want to say it's almost been a year, and I listened to the podcast, and I was listening to the podcast like it was my first time, because I don't remember none of the questions he asked me, and I will be posting some of the audio and the podcast so that you guys can listen to it. But I don't remember nothing. By the way, I'm gonna get to your question. I don't remember anything, and I was kind of nervous because I was listening to the question he was asking. I was coming up with a response, and then I was curious as to what my last year Shahara was gonna say in response to that question. Like, I would have said this in this moment, but I wonder what Shahara of last year said in that moment. And interestingly enough, we said the same thing. The former Shahara and the Shahara that's sitting here today, we said the same thing. We offered the same things, but the questions that he was asking were feelings, thoughts, emotions, and sentiments that were already familiar. So we were consistent with our messaging. I'm talking about myself like it's two of us. So anyways, that's an exercise that I didn't realize could be an exercise. But, if you do podcasts, if you kind of ever film yourself, getting interviewed, see what type of responses you might offer and how much in alignment they are. Anyways, Mylene says, what about people who come up with ideas as they speak, like processing out loud? Is that a thing? Yes, it is a thing. Every single day now that I've been doing the ABCs of communication, connection, and speaking, I have been coming up with this ish as I speak. I do, however, come into it. Today's one point was I said what I said. And I don't know why I was sitting here and thinking that, but I said, okay, I said what I said. That means that there's a very simple point that you're making. And if you want to stay organized, keep it organized. Just do one point. So that was all I kind of prepared in going into this. But I had an idea. I had one thought. I knew I was going to go one direction. And then as I was kind of talking that through in my head, journaling came up. And I was like, okay, journaling could be something that I talk about, but I'm going to put it off to the side. I'm going to make this point about I said what I said. I want to figure out how I can make I said what I said make sense to organizing your thoughts. And so as I'm walking through it, I'm constantly reminding myself as to what inspired me to say I said what I said. And it's really at the core. When you can say, I said what I said, you know it was plain, you know it was simple, you know it is clear, and you know that other people heard you and they understood. And if that's the case, you know it was pretty organized, it was succinct, it was pretty concise. And if you need help in that, then just make it one thought, one idea, one point, right? So that's what I did today. But I always go into it, names, right? Yesterday was names. I went into it with one point. First of all, my name is Shahara. Okay, I knew I had to talk. I knew I had a place to start talking about names because of my name. And then I had a situation where we talked about names. So I had that in my mind. And then I had a third, like a tactic of something that I knew would be helpful in the space of names. So I always go into it having an idea, but you're still like, it's sometimes spur of the moment, impromptu, extemporaneously speaking. You can't plan it all out, but in the moment you can say that this is my one point, and then you can figure it out as you go along. And the more that you do that, you will start to strengthen the mind and that muscle of how you're able to be that conductor to bring the thoughts in and out. Thanks, Saya. I appreciate that. That's all I got for y'all today. And I'm going to be real honest for anybody that's watching this now or in the replay. I was like, oh, all I could say was, oh, and then, oh, O'Reilly. But that had absolutely nothing to do with our conversation today. But I was like, oh, what am I going to talk about? Oh. And I know that people are always talking about organizing their thoughts and their ideas. And I really wanted to simplify it in a way where even if you just watch this video, set yourself up to say, I said what I said. And to set yourself up for that, provide one clear point. And if you want to strengthen your mind muscle, then do some journaling. Get familiar with the highways and byways of your mind. Okay. That's all I have to say about that. I will share this in case people are watching the replay. My company is Speak House. Yeah. And we offer communication coaching. And the people that we definitely find ourselves helping are people who are growing their public profile and using communication and public speaking to elevate in their business, right? In a way you are not seeking acclaim, but in a way you want to establish your confidence, establish your credibility, and really exercise influence to the point that it does bring you to a certain level of acclaim. You want to be that thought leader. You want to be that leader. You want to be that industry leader. But you want to use communication and public speaking in order to leverage more opportunities and attract more opportunities your way, whether it's panels, podcasts, conferences, keynotes, whether it's showing up here on lives and really performing well on that. And honestly, sometimes it just comes down to the fact that you are tired of speaking somewhere, somebody walking up to you and telling you did a great job, and then you walk away feeling like, but I could have done better. I don't know. It's just something that I'm feeling. So we're all dealing with doubt. We're all dealing with negative self-talk. We're all dealing with, certain insecurities. We all want to be extremely proficient. And for those of us who are definitely ambitious and we've got goals and we've got dreams, sometimes we're hard on ourselves, so we're looking for feedback and critiquing that we can trust and community that we can grow with. Anyways, all of that is what we do over at Speak House. So if you want to learn more, specifically also about our group coaching program. It is our cohorted membership that we're going to be launching soon. And if that's something that you are interested in, then make sure you DM me at with Speak House, HAUS, and we can pick up a conversation and talk about all the things. Okay, so that's all I got for y'all. Bada bing, bada boom. I will see y'all tomorrow. Peace out.